Okay, we're continuing with the Pachad Yitzchok on Purim. We're in the first Ma'amar, in this case it's called the first Inyan, and we're discussing Reshit Goyim Amalek Ve'achrito Adei Oved, the pasuk in Ovadia. I'm sorry, the pasuk in Balak. That's the prophecy of Bilam. Okay, so we talked about how we were describing actually very, very interesting Tchunot HaNefesh. We talked about Rabbeinu Yonah's comment on the pasuk in Mishlei about V'ish lefi mahalalo, that a person can be recognized based on what he praises, because a person has a faculty that we'll call the koach of hakirat hachashivut. A person is driven to recognize in his mind that which is important, and to afford it primacy, meaning to subjugate oneself to that which he recognizes is important in life. So a person is recognized based on what he praises, because that is an identification of what he thinks of as important. Okay. We're going to pick up with Dalet. Kol hadvarim halalu amurim heim ba'adam she'etzem koch hakarat hachashivut mutbahu bo kahagon. Okay, so we want to discuss now that we talked about this. A person has a drive to recognize that which is important. Somebody who really, really loves Torah learning, he will afford Talmidei Chachamim great respect, where in contrast, even somebody who spent all his life learning Torah, if he doesn't respect Talmidei Chachamim, but he fawns over the rich and famous, it shows how close he really is to Torah. Right. So now we said, now that's all true, meaning that when given a deeper level, operating the way it should, which we're going to discuss now. Meaning that this is actually what we have identified until now as an overlay of a deeper process that we want to discuss or introduce. Okay, so what we were talking about until now we'll call the koach hakarat hachashivut, the power of the recognition of importance that a human has. Okay, so now. Ella shabchina hi im koach zeh poal hu b'makom haroi u'b'kivon haraoi. This aspect, it only works when it is in its proper place and it is focused properly. Aval ha'emeti, the truth is, ki b'mivchan zeh, with this level, shel ish lefi mahalalo, this phenomenon of being able to identify a person, that a person expresses his praise based on what he recognizes as important, nechlelet hi she'ela mukdemet l'she'ela hanal. So before we ask, in order to identify a person, we ask, what does he praise? Before we do that, we have to ask a deeper question on the person. Ki aleinu ladat, it is for us to know, shelekoach zeh shel hakarat hachashivut, for this faculty of being able to recognize that which is important, nimtza benefesh hitnagdut gdola. The human soul naturally has a great contraforce to this faculty. Just like a person has the ability or the drive to seek out something important that he must sublimate himself to, that's all given that the contraforce he has also simultaneously a force to reject and to kick back on anything that is foisted upon him as being important. Meaning anything that presents itself to him, to his being, as threatening to overpower him because it is important, that he should subjugate, there's a claim of importance that he should subjugate himself to, as long as that is not in its proper place, he can never get to the point where, or we can't get to the point where we can identify him based on what he affords respect to. Meaning, a person cannot afford respect if their faculty for destroying respect is in check. So we're saying that a person doesn't just have a faculty of identifying what's important, but he also has a need to dispel the importance of things.
Can you give an example of that?
We're going to discuss it in a second. I'm just introducing it. A person has a need to dispel and to fight against the projected importance of something.
It's almost, say, what the Alshech said in Noach, that every positive energy has an equivalent and opposite negative energy.
We're going to spec out the full psyche of this. Okay? So nimtza benefesh hitnakdut gedola. In a person's nefesh, they have a tznuah of hitnakdut, a spirit of
rebellion.
Yes, but it's not rebellion, meaning just qua rebellion. It's specifically a threat. Something has a claim of importance. Instead of my natural tendency would be to sublimate myself, I have to check that first. Meaning I'm not willing. There is the indomitable human spirit, right? Is the need to be free. And I will not contain myself based on external reality just because of claims of importance. Meaning that could be used for good. Avram Avinu went around striking all the lies that tried to imprison the human psyche, right? However, if this is not in check, if a person is burning down the wrong structures, then he never got to a place of a koach hahilu, a power, meaning, we'll discuss it. Okay. So, yesh ba b'nafsho shel adam nitiyah charifa lezilzul. A person in his soul has a strong or a sharp, a nitiyah is not a reflex, but a compulsion, lezilzul, to degrade things. Le'umat koach hakarat hachashivut, in contrast to the faculty of recognizing importance, nimtza hu benefesh mahalach she'eno rotzeh lisbol shum chashivut. There is a strain, a streak in the person where a person does not want to suffer any sort of importance. Ubeziluta nichale, and it is easier for him, it is more pleasant for him to disdain it and to find how it is not important.
Because you don't want to lower yourself to something else.
Right. Meaning these are all caricatures of things that if they were, meaning they're total or extreme applications of things that if they were b'mizug, if they were in their proper proportion, they allow a man to be straight. They allow balance. Meaning, imagine if a person throws himself to everything. He'll start buying celebrity magazines, right, and worshiping all kinds of silliness, and has degraded his spirit of man. He's imprisoned in something that is so beneath him, which we're going to discuss that contrast on the other side. This is all in an attempt to understand the human psyche so that we can appreciate the impure force of Amalek. I'm just noting that we're taking this, right, we started in the context of understanding Amalek, okay? So, Shmo, the name, Shalakoach Hazeh, if we gave a name to this need for a man to disdain the importance in things, Hamitparetz b'chazaka, which breaks through with great strength and vitality, lahafkia tatzmo, in order to cast off the yoke from himself, miyadeh shel chashivut, from the yoke of importance. What is the name of this? Leitzanut, mockery. Mockery serves that only that's what it's there for. And indeed, in society, right, that's what we reserve mockery for, to take away and to call forth the emptiness of the things that claim importance that we feel are threatening, and we have to show how they're really nothing, they're paper tigers, or else we wouldn't afford them any of our attention. So there's the posturing as if it's so silly, but really the truth is we feel the need to point out how silly it is, right? Because we're fighting.
Because we're threatened by it.
Exactly. Right. So that's leitzanut. Midat leitzanut ha'atzmit, the essential quality of mockery, kefishin nitzeh b'nefesh b'sharsha, how, according to the nature of how she is found in her roots in the nefesh, inyana hi limtso et hapratza b'chol binyan shel chashivut, al menat listor et kol binyan. What's its modus operandi? It identifies in a structure, in a building, where there's a hole or a crack, and it exploits that crack to undermine the entire building. Mitocha shel partzazu, through within this pirza, this gap. So he's been using also the language, there's a lot of descriptive language, which means pritzut, means a breaking of boundaries, a breaking forth, an attack, cutting through a protective barrier. So it finds a crack in the fence and it exploits it, right? Which is very much meaning, what is the cheapness of the modus operandi of mockery is you find something that does not necessarily tell of the essential rottenness of the thing, but it's just a blemish, and you use that to justify bringing down the whole system.
Right.
It's an exploitation and an exaggeration, and you're saying that blemish represents the whole thing, and therefore the whole thing is no good. So it's really exploitation. Okay? She'ifato, okay, zeh leumat zeh. This, in contrast to this, meaning this is the exact opposite of the need that someone has to afford and to build up and to put on a pedestal and to protect, meaning something that's very, very important, is very dear to him, and it's precious to him. So, and if something's important, then we protect all of it because we want to support the structure. So that exact mirror of that is this koach haletzanut, mockery. Okay? She'ifato shel koach hahilul, the desire, the yearning, the movement, the direction of this faculty, this power of praising something, being able to praise something. Why are you praising it? To take note and to fortify the fact that it is important in your vision of reality. Hu laharbot chashivut ba'alam. Koach hahilul, the need to praise, is to give importance in the world. Is to bring importance. Ula umato, and in contrast to that, she'ifato shel koach haletzanut, the desire of the power of mockery. Hi laharbot zilzul ba'alam. It is to bring disdain and. Is there another synonym, a good word for when you rob something of its importance and leave it bereft and shamed? V'nimtza, and it turns out, ki hamivchan hazeh, the test to know, shel ish lefi mahalalel, to identify a person according to that which he praises, mitpashet hu ben shtei nekudot misuyamot. That is a reality that extends between two particular points in the person's nefesh. Meaning, a person, according to his praise, is a manifestation of where he is between his ability to recognize importance and his need to disdain things. Where he is in that is his dat, his vision of the world, and therefore that's what will be expressed in the koach hahilul. Hanekudah harishona, what's the first point in this range that expresses itself as what he praises? Matzavo shel ha'adam, the state of the person, b'machloket zo, in this argument or in this fight, sheben koach hahilul ben koach haletzanut. Person lives in the tension between his need, his power to give praise, and his power to disdain. Okay, so he has a force in him that needs to bring down structures of importance, and he has a need to put himself beneath that which is greater than him and praise it. What a person praises is where he finds himself in the tension of these two forces. Hanekuda hashniya, the second point, ki be'im timtze lomar. If, right, im timtze lomar is a phrase from Chazal, it's how we learn in the Gemara. If you're assuming, meaning given this, then we could talk about this. Yeah. So, im timtze lomar shal hanekuda rishona, meaning if you have already a person who is not struggling in a negative way with his need to disdain things, with his koach hazilzul, right? Dahainu, im timtze lomar, if we're able to say, shebil mechamazu, that in this war, in the tension, sheben koach hahilul ben koach haletzanut, that a person stands between his need to disdain things and his need to praise things, natzach koach hahilul, that what was his koach hahilul, his need to find meaning in life and accord importance to things, has won over his need to disdain things. Once we can see that, then we can identify him based on his koach hahilul. Mikol makom, akati yesh kan she'ela. Now we still have a question. Who is he? Koach hahilul, his faculty of praise. Be'ezeh shetach hu poel. Where, in what field does it operate? Meaning, when you want to know who a person is, first we have to know that he is not somebody who is driven by mockery. He is not totally subservient to this need to disdain everything, then we know he has a koach hilul, he affords importance to things. So now we can ask, what indeed does he afford importance to? Okay? So we're just describing a structure in the psyche of these two forces, so we can develop it further. How are we for time?
For 20 minutes.
Oh, really? Okay. Vihine, im na'amid lifanenu et ha'she'ela. If we would stand before ourselves the following question: Mahu hamakom asher bo himtzi ha'adam et ha'chashivut hayoter gedola l'sheker hayoter gadol. Present for me a scenario to illustrate where a person could put his faculty of praise in the most inappropriate place. Meaning, where can we see, to understand how this koach hahilul can be used, what would be the perfect example of a description of the koach hahilul being used in the least truthful way? Meaning, where does a man, in what case has a man made himself the most subservient to the biggest lie? Where can you totally misuse your koach hahilul and your ability, your faculty for recognizing that which is important? Bli safek, without a doubt, she'hatshuva al zeh, the answer to this question, tihiyeh avodat alileh, the service of idols. Meaning the need for avodah zarah, to serve in a relationship with avodah zarah, is actually the identification, the need to afford respect and power to something which is more important to you, and to sublimate yourself to it. So, however, it's unfortunate that totally giving over of himself to something is something which doesn't exist at all. So the illustration of the complete misuse of koach hahilul would be avodah zarah. Ki ein lecha chashivut yoter gdola min avodah. There is nothing greater, no greater expression of a man affording respect or importance to that which he services, which he works towards and invests in and services. Avodah. Ve'en lecha sheker, and you don't have a lie greater, yoter gadol min ha'alil, from a false god. That's what a false god is. It's the ultimate sheker. Be'ofen de'etzal ha'adam ha'oved et ha'alil koach hahilul natzach amnam et koach hazilzul. So it is true that in this illustration, where someone is serving avodah zarah, so it is true that his need to afford respect has conquered over his natural reflex to disdain things and to belittle them. However, shekol atzma shel avodah eina ele mitziut shel hilul. And it's true that the whole essence of his service is this power of praising something. Avakoach hilul, but this power of praise, poel kan, it operates here, b'shetach shel hepuch ha'emet, in the field of the opposite of truth. Meaning, he's putting this koach hilul, this recognition of importance, and thus serving something which is entirely false. V'nimtza, and it turns out, avodah zarah, hi piskat koach hilul b'tzad hara. It is the apex, it is the ultimate use of koach hilul in a negative way. V'zehu pesha davar, and this is the explanation. Shebeheter ha'leitzanut naktu chachamim ledugma chet zeh shel avodah zarah dafka. Remember, we had this question before, that if leitzanut is so bad, why do the chachamim say that the only time that it is appropriate to use mockery is when you mock avodah zarah? We asked that. We said that really you would think that mockery is great as long as it's used against bad things. And we said, why is it that Chazal use their description of when it is okay to use mockery is specifically for avodah zarah? And here we have just demonstrated because it is the best illustration. It is the perfect description of koach hahilul being used in the wrong way, which is the only time that we need mockery. Meaning, what is mockery for? But to rob something of its importance. So when somebody's koach hahilul is being used for something that is indeed not important, we need to knock that down. We need to restore the sheker to emet with koach hazilzul. So that's why the Chachamim said it's appropriate by avodah zarah. Bevadai deheter aleitzanut, it is certain that when you're allowed to use mockery, noheg hu b'chol pratav shel tzad hara. Really, you should be able to use mockery to fight any evil. Ava halo oto hara. But what is an example, an illustration of that evil, which is literally sustained by the opposite of the power of mockery? It is being sustained by the opposite of mockery, which is the koach ha'ilul, and that is avodah zarah. And therefore, the chachamim are illustrating appropriate use of the power of mockery in that case. V'alkein davar tivihu la'oved Hashem. It is a natural thing for he who serves God liached et koach leitzanut, to dedicate his ability to mock neged chet avodah zarah dafka, specifically against the sin of avodah zarah. Okay. Hey. B'piska hakodemet hi hamdubar. In the previous entry we mentioned alodot hishtamshut b'leitzanut b'tzad hatov, how one could use the power of mocking for good. Uvekegon leitzanut d'avodah zarah kedoma, like using mockery against idol worship and the like. Amnam, however, aleinu ladat, it is upon us to know, ki hevdel gadol yesh b'sharshei kochot hanefesh ben koach leitzanut b'tzad hatov hanal uben koach leitzanut b'stama. You should know, though, that in the case where you're using mockery to fight avodah zarah, it is not just the same mockery that one could use for evil, but there is a huge difference, a qualitative difference between the mockery you will use to bring down evil and the mockery stam that a person has that they need to abstain from in their nefesh. Hine nitbaer lanu, it has been explained to us, ki gadra shel leitzanut hu harisat binyan hachashivut. The description, the place of the power of mockery is specifically in destroying structures of importance. Vadai, certainly, shahagdara zu noheget hi b'chol hofa'ah shel leitzanut afil kishi ba b'tzad hatov. So that would be an apt description of this force, even when it's being used for good. Right? It's a destruction of structures of importance. To b'chol makom, nevertheless, po'elet ha'leitzanut hi la'amtzi zilzul. Ela shemikol makom, הבדל גדול יש בשורש בין ליצנות סתם ובין ליצנות לצד הטוב. דהמצאת הזלזול אשר בסתם ליצנות, עצמיותה היא המיון במהות חשיבות והרדיפה אחר מהות הזלזול. Okay, this is very subtle but very beautiful. אבל המצאת הזלזול הנמצא בליצנות עבודה זרה איננה אלא בגדר תולדה. So when somebody is using mockery against things, it's because he's being driven by a need to mock, a need to destroy. However, when somebody is using their mockery against that which is evil, it's not their power of mockery. It's their need to restore importance. And the mockery is only a tolda of that. Meaning it's not even coming from the power of mockery. It's that it's just a toolkit that his power of importance, of seeking importance in the world has, that's being used for that purpose. Right? Meaning somebody's just going around knocking things. It's his power, it's his need, rather, to disdain things. Somebody who is making a mockery out of evil, it's his need to restore the importance of things. Koach hachilul hanolad mikoach hahilul. Dimipnei shehu machshevet hatov. Since it is so important for him, he affords respect and importance to that which is truly good. Harehu mizalzel berad. That is the only reason why he is mocking evil. Umashmuta shaletzanuta d'avodah zarah hi, and the meaning of the mockery of avodah zarah, it's koach hachilul, the power to make profane, hanolad mikoach hahilul, which is born out from the need to make important, to praise. Okay? This is a very important point. He's saying that in using the power of mockery for good, it's not even the same drive as the regular power of mockery. Meaning, somebody who has not fought against the leitzanut in his heart, right? He is triggered to disdain things by knocking down importance. Somebody who happens to be using mockery against evil is driven by the need to restore importance into the world. So that mockery is servicing his koach hahilu. So it's not even coming from the same place. It's just a tool being used to service the enforcement, the recognition, and affording respect to true importance in the world. V'nimtza, de'af al pi she'ba'ofi hachitzoni. It turns out that even though in an external aspect, Leitzanut d'avodah zarah dome hi leitzanut stam, the mocking of avodah zarah looks like just regular mockery. Mikol makom, nevertheless, b'shasha, in her root, u'bi'ikra, and in her essence, rechoka hi mimena b'tachlit. She is the furthest thing from the power of mockery. The leitzanut stam, because just plain mockery, hi hamtza'at zilzul, it is the invention of disdain, of putting down something, l'shem riboy hazilzul ba'olam, in order to increase mockery in the world. Meaning it is a force that is servicing itself, that is being driven by a breakdown of importance. It identifies important things and it breaks them down. Why? So that there shouldn't be importance. V'katav b'msilat yesharim, and the Holy Ramchal wrote in Mesilat Yesharim, Ki leitzanut achat doche mea tochachot. There's a very famous phrase that is a descriptor of the power of mockery, that its nature is that it is doche mea tochachot. That one tiny piece, one joke can undermine years of musar, of the study of importance, of the meditation on how important something is, and you have something, it is so powerful, it's so unfair almost, that it has that power below the belt, it just dispels everything. Ubli safek, and without a doubt, the Mekorohu midivrei haGemara, the Ramchal knows this from the words of our sages in the Talmud, the paskinan, because we paskin la halacha, the keshem she mitzvah lomar davar hanishma, kach mitzvah lo lomar davar she'eno nishma. Just like a person has a mitzvah to tell the truth, so too there's a mitzvah, meaning he has a mitzvah to say over that which he heard from his Rebbe, right? Kach mitzvah lo lomar, so too he has a mitzvah not to say over davar she'eno nishma, something that he never heard from his Rebbe. V'yalfinan zeh mide katav kra, midechtiv kra, and we learn this out from the verse which says, Al tochiach letz. Don't give musar to a mocker. Okay, I mean, this is a deep thing that we have to explore, but basically the verse says that there is no point in giving a musar to a mocker. It's not going to work. And this is going to go actually to the roots of what our understanding of Amalek before, because we contrasted Amalek to Yitro, because we said that the verse in Mishlei says, let's take upeti yarim, that a mocker you strike and a fool you uplift. And we said that the mocker that we strike is Amalek, and the fool that we uplift is Yitro. That when the mocker is struck, he's so far gone, he cannot benefit at all from rectification. But in striking him, the fool is uplifted, right? That it's a rectification for the observer. It seems that it's futile. Somebody who has put himself in a place of mockery, there's nothing you can do for him. So we say, meaning, what good is it to step into his life and try to correct him and try to help him and aid him? He's impervious to it.
Right.
Okay, so the Ramchal says, based on this, that leitzanut achat, look at the power of leitzanut, that it can strike through hundreds of attempts of musar and good. Tochacha is what not
rebuke.
Yeah, but rebuke not like an admonition, but more like a corrective, transformative rebuke. Right? So he's basically impervious to this, and that's mockery. I just want to say over here, parenthetically, the Divrei Chaim, the Holy Sons of Rav, Zchuto Yagen Aleinu, he said, do you know why? Why should mockery have such a power? So he says, it's just the flip side of the same coin, because it says, Ma'at me'al doche harbe me'al choshech. Because just a little bit of light chases away so much darkness. So, don't be scared or turned off that the power of evil has such a power that could cut through so much good, that just drop of leitzanut can destroy so much tochacha, but it's rather the flip side, because actually it only takes a drop of light to dispel a tremendous amount of darkness. Okay, v'chazinan mizeh, we see from here, da'ahepach shel kabbalat tochacha hu ha'leitzanut. What is the actual opposite of the force of rebuke, of a corrective measures, where something outside can help correct another being from the outside in? That is leitzanut, mockery. It's, of course, we can say that it's quite possible in many scenarios why rebuke would not help. Why? I can think of many reasons or many scenarios where tochacha, rebuke, would be ineffective. How did Chazal know to say that, you know why tochacha, what's the arch nemesis, the ultimate force, the contra, the foil, the ultimate foil to rebuke is leitzanut. Amnam hem advarim. That must be that those indeed are the facts. Ein kana kavana limniyat kabbalat tochacha pratit al davar pratit. Chazal don't mean that specific rebuke for just in a specific situation where one is attempting to rebuke, that a word of leitzanut can undermine the entire situation. Not just that. The pashutu, the pratiuta shel kol tochacha yesh la kama miniyot v'ikuvim litkabluta. Because even though the words of the sages seem to say that, we know that the tochacha rebuke can be undermined for many reasons. That is not the reason. Aval hakavana kanhi. But over here we're saying, the intent here is lekochot hanefesh shel kabbalat tochacha b'chal. He's saying it's not just that in any given situation, you know why rebuke won't work because of the leitzanut there? No, it's saying that if ever rebuke doesn't work, it's because of the power of leitzanut. Leitzanut is the exact opposite. The koach haleitzanut, meaning it's not in that situation necessarily, in a given situation, Chazal are coming to identify the ultimate opposite. And they're saying that the koach haleitzanut b'chlal mitnaged hu lekoach kabbalat tochachat b'chlal. That the power of mockery generally is the force that, what is that? It's a force to resist rebuke. Dechol tochacha inyanahu la'orer tachashivut shel tikun ha'ma'avot. What is rebuke? To awaken within someone the understanding of importance to rectifying that which is perverted. It's to say, listen, I'm identifying right from wrong here, and I'm trying to make a point here of how urgent and necessary and important it is to restore that which is important. Life has meaning, reality has meaning, and over here, rebuke is an attempt to reorient and synchronize one with the true, that which is truly chashuv. So what was becoming to undermine that? The leitzanut, like we talked about before. V'hit'orerut chashivutzu, the awakening inherent in the rebuke for the rectification or restoring of chashivut, pogat rishona b'koach haleitzanut shebenefesh, that immediately, right, it irritates, it provokes the power of leitzanut, of mockery, in a person, she'eno sovel shum chashivut, which cannot stand or suffer any form, any threat of importance. Umit paretz hu, and he breaks through lahamit et yachas achashivut, to kill this relating to importance. Techef, immediately, b'tchilat hitaruto, as soon as he is awakened. Meaning, somebody is triggered by an external attempt to foist upon him a structure, a recognition of an external importance, and immediately there's a reflex to knock it down through mockery. Because mockery, like we said, is the need to resist that which is important.
Can you give us an example? I'm really struggling with an example of how you could praise something, at the same time have a desire to ridicule it.
Okay, so that was 3 points ago.
Okay.
And we actually, and we'll end like this because our friend Shalom Tanji Shlita is here. But it's like this. The first point we made was we discussed something called koach hahilu, the ability, the need for somebody to identify importance in the world and express it. Mm-hmm. And then we said that underneath that, a person cannot really get to the koach hahilu if he doesn't subjugate or win over a need to dispel importance, to destroy importance in the world, which is a non. Sorry, give me a second. it is a non-discriminatory need. I mean, the koach, the natural force of mockery, does not care about what's important or not. It's a force that goes around destroying importance. So we said first, if a person actually has gotten over the fact that he's a mocker and he recognizes there are certain important things in the world, then through that which he affords praise, you can identify what's important to him and therefore know who he is.
Once he's a mocker.
Once he is not subject to a koach haletzanut, he has something called the koach hahilul, which is the expression of koach hakarat hachashivut. He has the ability to praise something which is an expression of his need to find that which is important and sublimate himself to.
Right.
And will identify what is important to him based on what he praises.
Right.
Okay, so now, that's when we introduced the koach of leitzanut. Now we said that why is it that Chazal use specifically leitzanut, mockery, against avodah zarah as the illustration of when you could use mockery? Because we said that, so we pointed out in a discussion of that, we said that that is the ideal illustration of mockery, because the mocking is, meaning that is, worshipping avodah zarah is where you have the most displaced koach hahilul. A person's recognition of importance can be the most displaced when it's to serve, when it brings him actually to serve, that his life is serving Allah, avodah zarah. Mm-hmm. Okay? And therefore Chazal said, that's the illustration where they said you should use mockery. When can you use mockery? Against bad things. Mm-hmm. So the Pachad Yitzchok says, hold on. This is the important point. You have to know there's a huge difference here. When you use mockery, and when a person is just using mockery, that's the koach of leitzanut. Mm-hmm. And he's still not holding by hakarav chashivut. But when a person is making fun of avodah zarah, he's not using his need to dispel bad things. It's his need to make chashivut in the world, which is using mockery in its toolkit to restore importance. Right. So somebody who's making fun of avodah zarah through mockery, he doesn't have the power of mockery in him, or else he never would have gotten to that need to recognize what's important. It's his need to recognize what's important that he's using a similar modus operandi that the koach leitzanus has to dispel wrong chashivut, in order to restore the chashivut. When a person is using mockery to make fun of that which is evil, he's actually trying to restore chashivut. It's his need to recognize importance in the world. So that was a subtle difference, but an important difference that we raised. And then we said that we identified a third element here. Another part of the mix is how leitzanut can be understood as the opposite of rebuke. Because rebuke is also the restoration of that which is important. And the thing that it will trigger is this primal need that a person has to resist anything important. Okay? And therefore, just one more line and we'll finish the paragraph, and I'll turn you over to the competent hands and mind and soul of our friend. Right? We said that the Ramchal says that mockery dispels 100 effective rebukes. Meaning you can have a guy that he's been learning through a Sefer Musar and he's towards the end, and then he has a moment where somebody mocks something, it could send him all the way back to zero. In Perusha Dafka, the meaning of that statement is not specifically Sha'adam Shochicho Oto Mitlotzetz Bepo Mitochachat Hamochiach. It's not describing a scenario where you have a guy who's getting rebuke and he actually is mocking back. Ela Sha'inyan Hu Harbe Yoter Amok. It's much deeper. Koach HaLeitzanut Shebenefesh, the power of mockery that is still extant in a person's nefesh, doche is pushing off at kabbalat hatochacha shebenefesh, the rebuke that he's receiving in his nefesh. Meaning, he's at odds. On the one hand, there's a corrective force that is trying to be received to correct him, and there is a smidgen, even the tiniest amount of leitzanut in his heart, which is pushing so much of those mea tochachot inside of him. And with that, we'll pause for next time. Baruch Hashem Yolam. Amen v'yamen.